Welcome to the world of scale modeling with Mike Ashe, where techniques, tips, and creativity come alive with dozens of tutorials, projects, tape-up reviews, and picture references to help you build better scale models and enjoy our wonderful hobby. Welcome to episode 12 of our multi-part series on detailing and building the Revell Monogram 148 scale B-17G. In part 12, we'll button up the fuselage with medium set super glue, which acts as both a glue and a filler, and then we'll do all the seam work and smooth it all out in preparation for attaching the main wings. So, let's get started. I've got the fuselage halves glued together, and some of the prep work I did before I closed up the fuselage was I cleaned the inside of the glass really well, because once it's closed up you can't get to it. And then I covered the surface of the glass with some tape to keep it from being marred during the gluing and taping process. And so I used tape to tightly hold the fuselage halves together, and then use a fresh tube of medium set super glue, put a little puddle on a stiff piece of white paper, and dip my trusty 0.018 inch stiff brass or stiff steel wire into that puddle and just ran it right along the seam. You can usually get about a ½ inch worth of glue, and as you do that you can see the glue seep down into between the seam areas, and it looks pretty good. So it took about 45 minutes to do the top and the bottom. I did the bottom first, let it dry, and then I did the top. So you can see the glue is just along the seam line. There's a little bit of a misalignment on this kit right over here, but it made it easy it made a nice little lip to run that bead of super glue, and once I scrape it and sand it, it'll disappear. There's a slight misalignment back here, and once I scrape and sand, I'll fix that and then glue that tail piece on there for the twin 50 caliber machine guns excuse me, that come out the tail. But the kit just feels really solid now that it's glued together. And here's the underside. You can see that bead of super glue just along the seam line, and super glue acts as a filler. So on some kits you may have to put 2 or 3 applications, but this kit fits together fairly well. I had to put a few extra drops here, and then where the inside area where the seams were, I put a drop of super glue there, and then on the top too, here, and on these openings. And there was a slight void here, so I filled it. It's 0.010 inch, was a really tight fit, this evergreen strip stock. Slipped it in there and just put super glue on both sides, and I'll go ahead and trim it and sand it. And then I'll touch up the interior a little bit. But it's got a really solid feel to it, and it came out pretty good. So again, this medium set super glue, put a puddle onto your white paper, and with this stiff steel wire, you just run it right along the seam, and away you go. And it allows you to make adjustments so that, because sometimes one half will be slightly raised above the other half between the pin alignments, and so you can make those adjustments and then run a bead of super glue in there, and in 10 seconds it's attached. So it looks pretty good. So now I'll remove the tape, put some super glue on those areas, and then begin the scraping and sanding process. And I'll try to preserve as much of the raised panel lines as possible, because on a real B-17, most of the fuselage was lap jointed, which means that these raised panel lines accurately represent the locations where the surface skin overlapped each other. The only place where Monogram missed was right here. That should be a petite engraved line, because that's the connection point between the front half and the back half of the fuselage, and there were like 3 rows of rivets on each side. I've got a video that I'm working on that I'm going to post as part of the series on doing this B-17 kit.
from, I took videos of the surface skin of a real B-17G. This one is located at Eglin Air Force Base, outside Aircraft Museum. And that B-17G's been there for about 50 years, and it's in pretty good shape considering its age. And so you'll be able to see for yourself what I mean about all of these raised panel lines, and the fact, the other thing, of course, Monogram missed was there were just thousands of rivets on the surface of these B-17s. So with that, we'll go ahead and remove the tape, and I'll show you what that looks like with the tape completely removed except over the glass, the clear plastic areas, and then we'll begin the scraping and sanding process. I've got the areas where the masking tape was located that held the part halves together. All those areas have now been super glued, and it's looking pretty good. I'm going to run some tape along the seam lines so that in case I slip with the sandpaper, it won't damage any of the surrounding surface detail. And I think we're ready to go. So I'll do small sections at a time, and I'll show you the progress as we move along the surface. I'll show you the bottom here before I shut the video down and get going. I've got some of the forward area seam work done, and came out pretty good. The plastic still needs to be smoothed out, but looks pretty good. I'll go ahead and remove this silver paint that I use as a crack detector with a Q-tip. And you need to be very, very careful up here to maintain this sharp point here and here. And for all of this fine seam work, I use these really thin sandpaper sticks, and they work really, really well. You can't dip them in water. It just loosens up the glue, but they work really well. Found a little crack right there, which I filled with some super glue, just a drop. And on the underside, I started working my way back from here out to this protrusion right here, and then I'll start on this side and very carefully sand that edge. There's a little bit of a cup here, here, and here, and how you fill these, you take a tiny, tiny piece of evergreen strip stock. In this case, it was 0.010 inches thick, and just super glue it into place, and all I have to do is trim it and sand it smooth, and that'll take care of that. And this happens a lot with kits. Where the edges meet, sometimes you get a little bit of an indentation. So, so far so good. I'll go ahead and work my way down this way, and then this way, and here, and then I'll go ahead and complete this area right here. But so far, pretty good. I'm real pleased with the way it's coming along, and I'm glad I covered the clear parts. And once it's all done, when I get a little further, I'll show you what this looks like down here. I'm going to try to preserve this piece here and this protrusion here. I'll clean that up. I was able to reshape this a little bit. There's kind of a misalignment between left and right side, and it looks weird. So I used a really, really sharp number 11 X-Acto blade and carefully peeled away a little bit on this side, and came out pretty good. It's not perfect, but it's a lot better than was. So far so good. Everything seems to be coming along, and I'll get back with you in a few minutes. I've completed the initial sanding, scraping, and cleanup work all along the bottom, and it came out pretty good. I was able to preserve this protrusion and this one and this one, and that area where I had that little piece of evergreen strip stock, when I cut it, shaped it, and sanded it smooth, and it came out pretty good. So all this looks good. Once I'm done down here, I'll go ahead and rescribe this line and then scribe a shallow line here where the Bombay doors come together, And I need to put a little bit of more super glue here, 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 and here, and then sand those areas smooth. Now, with respect to the raised panel lines, what I did was I just sanded them down from this point over the belly of the fuselage in these areas. And I did the same thing here, and here, and here. And once I start sanding this, because this tail, where the twin 50 calibers come out on the back, doesn't fit very well. I will try to remove a little bit more plastic here and see if that helps. But you can see on this side it's not too bad. That's about 10 thousandths of a void. Over here it's about 20 thousandths. So I'll glue this on last, but I do want to get all this seam work done. So once the bottom's done, I'll move to the top and start here and work my way around the tail, and then we'll be done with the preliminary work. So it's coming along much better than I expected for a kit that's pushing almost 50 years old. Yep, I need to put something back here, and we are good. I've completed the work on the last section of the seams on the upper part of the fuselage, which is from here to here. And I had to put 2 applications of super glue in this area here. There was a hole, an indentation where there were the tree attached to the fuselage. And when you're doing an edge like this, a sharp edge, use a larger sanding stick. It just seems to work better so that you don't flatten out that edge here. But it came out pretty good. And then when I got down to here, I went ahead and used the smaller sanding sticks. I did have one problem. This cracked on me, this seam cracked. So what I did was, after I glued it back together with some super glue, with my thin wire applicator, I got inside here and put a few drops of super glue along, let me see here, there we go, right inside there, on the inside, on both sides, so that I had a stronger bond. And that helped a lot. The other thing I did was I went ahead and glued that tail piece on. And when I checked it first, the void area was on this side, but I did some more sculpturing of the plastic, and then the void was on this side. So I used 0.010 inch evergreen strip to fill it, and super glued it all the way around. So all I have to do now is just sand it and shape it a little bit, and we'll be done with the fuselage. And then what I'll do is I'll go ahead and use really fine sections of steel wool pad to polish the plastic and get rid of any scratches. But first I'll go ahead and cover the openings, because this stuff tends to stick to painted areas. So I don't want that to happen and mar the inside. So I'll go ahead and cover all the openings when I do that. And then I'll go ahead and remove everything, and I'll blow it out with some high pressure air from my airbrush, and that should take care of any tiny specks of plastic or dust that are on the inside that might mar the surfaces of the plastic. So it's looking pretty good. Sorry about my voice this morning. It's haying season up here where we live, and of course my allergies are going crazy. But it's looking pretty good so far. I really like the way it's coming out. I sanded out the first coat of super glue and checked it with silver paint. I had some minor cracks, so I went ahead and put a second coat around the entire perimeter. So now all I have to do, I'll go ahead and wet sand this one out with some 320 grit and smooth it out with some finer sandpaper, and check it one more time with silver paint, and I think we're good to go ahead and remove all the silver paint and smooth out the plastic with some steel wool pads, and we'll be ready to glue on the wings. So stay tuned.
This concludes Part 12 of detailing and building the Revell Monogram 148 scale B-17G. Stay tuned for Part 13, where we attach the wings, fix all the seam work between the main wings and the fuselage, and then we're going to start airbrushing. Thanks for watching, and don't forget to subscribe to our channel and give us a thumbs up. And when you get the chance, visit our website at www.mikeashley.com, where you're going to find dozens of free PDF downloads, including tutorials, picture references, model galleries, projects, and my 5 original scale modeling books. Thanks to Bensound and Videvo for the royalty-free music, and happy scale modeling!